Hi everyone, Justin Pate from the Wrap Institute. And in this video, you're going to get great tips and tricks on how to wrap a dining room table. And this is part of an overall wrap rejuvenation at this flat here in Amsterdam where pretty much everything was wrapped. But this was actually one of my favorite installs, and here's why. Number one is savings. So this table actually came from the original owner. They left it behind, and it's actually quite a nice table. Solid wood, really nice legs. The finish, though, of the original table was a kind of an off-white wood, so it didn't quite go with the whole new design scheme in here. So instead of throwing this table in the landfill, which is not good for the environment, and buying a new one, and this table retails for around 1,800 euros, so pretty expensive, well, just got a few yards of Crocodile film, and voila, the table is wrapped and transformed. Number two is definitely for the techniques, pay attention to the corner game on this one. Really, really good. Best corner game I've ever had on a table. And that's because we used the Wrap Institute Zero Stretch on there. So definitely check those out for terms of technique. So great corner game. And the third one is, if you've ever had a wrap table in your home or office, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, well, for me, it's the durability. We've had this table now for about 3 months, and there's nothing like a wrap table in terms of if you get coffee stains or anything drops on the table, no worries, you just wipe it off. Let's say if you have a glass of water or a cup of coffee and you let it sit there for a few hours and it's a normal wood table, that's a problem because you get those stains and you always have to varnish it. Wrap tables, super easy to maintain. And again, that transformation, really nice. So this table from start to finish in terms of clean, prep, and finishing took, I would say, about 45 minutes in all. So wow, not a lot of time, not a lot of material, and especially with the tips and tricks you're about to see, great durability as well. So with that, enjoy the video. So we begin, of course, with cleaning. Here I'm using a surface cleaner, all-purpose cleaner, so it cleans and degreases at the same time. Highly absorbent microfiber towel, focus on the edges, and now here generously spraying the table itself. It has a nice sealed surface, so it won't soak into the wood. Very important to come back in with a scraper right now after the cleaners had time to kind of get underneath the oil and dirt and really be focused and get overlapping strokes left to right and cover the entire table, then soak everything up with that microfiber towel. So extra cleaning because it is a used table. So once everything's clean, very important to come in with primer now and focus on all the edges and corners. So here you're basically going to do a 360, cover the top corner, the bottom corner. The material that I'm going to be installing is a textured interior film, super thick, almost 10 millimeters thick, and because it's textured, that's why you want to put a lot of primer, especially on those corners, because as you seal them, very important to get that long-term hold because of the thickness of the film. Plus the film that I'm going to be installing is a calendar film. So you got that thickness, you got the texture, and you got the calendar film quotient in there. So that's why that primer is absolutely critical. Always make sure you allow it to dry for the specified time, in this case 10-15 minutes. So while it dries, this is a good time to prep the panel. So here, always want to make sure you don't use too much material, but obviously not too little. So here, got the width of the top of the table, now got the width of the sides. Going to do the exact same thing for the length right now. So you got the length at the top, then factor in the drop off on the sides, which is double, and then add in a little extra bleed. So always add in that. So some people kind of cut the tables a little too short, so you always want to have that extra material, especially when wrapping on the underside of the table for that long-term hold. So here, this pattern that I'm going to be wrapping with, that crocodile, doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical, but I think as a professional installer, it's always important right now to just take the liner and just really make sure that the panel is nice and uniform. It doesn't take that much longer, but I do think it'll just kind of aesthetically just kind of make it nice and kind of even when you're looking at the table. So maybe that pattern looks off if you just throw this on and it's crooked. So very important to kind of crease it right here so I know exactly where that edge is. It's nice and uniform, and that's why I love those liners, especially this one is broken up by centimeters, 10 centimeters between each box, so very easy. And now, because of the table is textured right now, and it's going to be actually quite an easy install in terms of squeegee, I'm going to start in the middle of the table and work out. If this was a highly aggressive surface, I would start at one end of the table and work towards the other side. But right now, because of that textured surface, a little bit of kind of ease in terms of straightforward install. So always better to start right in the middle when possible, using that backing paper cutter and cutting it quite wide right now because I really want it to sit nice and secure on the table. This is, again, a highly aggressive surface that I was wrapping on the table. I'd make that backing paper cut right now probably about 2 or 3 centimeters wider, about 1 inch. But because of that textured surface, you want it a little wider. So always adapt to the table. Now I flip it over, make sure it's nice and uniform. Double check the creases and the marks on the liner to make sure it's nice and uniform. Only takes a few seconds to do, but again, I think it really kind of determines whether you're professional or intermediate. Once everything's set, then I'm going to lock it right into position right there in a way that's kind of a baby permanent hinge. And now I'm going to really make the full permanent hinge. So I got that tab that I've kind of fold it over so it's very easy for me to grab. Just pull it out nice, low, and flat. So now I double check the panel, it's nice and uniform. So with that right now, I can lock it from where I started all the way to the other side, and now it's locked and loaded. You can see it's basically like a full squeegee length on the table, and that's because now it has a nice hold that's firm enough that when I do pull the liner, that section that I just applied doesn't pop up. If that was just 1 inch right now, I think the chance of that whole panel popping up is really high. Now I fold it over, make sure it's nice and low and flat. If you watched any other type of installs on this wrap rejuvenation in Amsterdam, you know that, when I was, let's say, wrapping in the kitchen or wrapping any other section, the material is grabbing very, very quickly. So it made it a little bit of a more stressful install. But here, as I mentioned earlier, that textured surface, right now I can kind of basically lock it on. In this case, basically just take off the entire liner. Very easy and straightforward. And that's another reason why I particularly enjoyed this table install, because for the most part, it wasn't super stressful. Didn't feel like you really had a critical, had to be super focused in terms of setting the panel up right, and if you didn't do it, it might lead to a costly redo. So very easy, straightforward install, and you can see nice, firm, overlapping squeegee strokes. The temptation right now is to use a bigger squeegee on this type of install, but I think still using a small squeegee right now is better because you can put more force on it and be more kind of get that pressure activation in terms of the adhesive right now, especially with that texture. You don't want to leave any air underneath it, and you don't want to add heat at the end because that can cause it to bubble and kind of shift, which is not good. So once everything's on the main surface area, always make sure you take your backing paper and make it super compact. This is mainly for the landfill, not recyclable, but this will definitely take up less space in the trash can. And now let's get to the corner game. What is critical to understand why the corner game was so particularly good on this table was zero stretch from the wrap matrix. So this is a sample of the Crocodile piece that I am installing on the table right now, and I'm doing a zero stretch just so you can appreciate how much it shrinks from left to right, which is the length of the roll. So once I heat it and recalibrate it right now, you can see that it shrinks back almost like 3 to 4%, which is quite a bit. And as I said earlier, it shrinks back on the length of the roll. So right now on this table, the length of the roll goes from the length of the table. So the material is naturally going to shrink back towards the corner. So by adding heat right now, it really just shrinks into the corner. That's the Wrap Institute Zero Stretch and Wrap Matrix. So by shrinking it and forming it to the corner first, this is really critical for interior films because I basically have no tension on that upper corner. So when I make the relief cut right now and I fold everything over, it's going to be nice and smooth. So that's zero stretch, and it looks super tiny, but interior film corners, especially like this right now, if you don't do that, it gets really buckly and you have a really kind of thick fold over at that upper corner. That's traditional with interior films because of the thickness in that calendar film, especially if it's Crocodile. So doing a little zero stretch kiss right there on the upper corner, then making the relief cut almost like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch under the corner, or about 2 millimeters, then you get that perfect smooth finish. Now here you can see I'm right at the bottom corner. I do the zero stretch one more time and I make another relief cut because I'm going to fold the material under about 1/4 inch on some sections. So here I make that relief cut away, fold it around, and you can see how smooth it is on that upper corner. Kiss it with heat, again that zero stretch so it shrinks back into that edge right now, nice and smooth. So relaxing the corner, really letting it shrink into the corner. I don't have to put any of my own energy into it. Now here, because it's textured film, I'm going to cut it almost a solid 1 centimeter or 1/4 around the edge. If this is a gloss film, I would cut it much closer to the corner for that overlap, but for that long-term hold in the surface energy, I make it a little thicker. Release the excess film there, so I'm set up for the wrap under for later. Makes it easier to put this piece on now. And notice what I do is I add heat to that upper corner right now. Even though it has a little adhesive promoter on there, I add heat and see how the material literally shrinks right to that upper edge right there. I don't have to do anything. It forms naturally by itself for a super tight seal. I take the application glove, I round it, then I come down towards the edge right now and no tension on that corner at all. And pay attention to how I cut this back. So very important right now, the main visual on the table will be on the length of the table. Not a lot of people will be sitting on this side of the table. So I'm going to make the overlap cut just on the inside of the corners, not flush on the corner, but just slightly on the inside. This is really good for durability, plus it just disappears right there on the edge. So very important to get this really precise, because if you do, it holds up particularly good and it looks good as well. So add heat just to make sure the adhesive is really settling on the bottom layer right now. And here you get a nice close-up of how nice that upper corner game is. So once all the corners are cut, always do your corners first. You can see you have that excess material in the middle. This is exactly the same on the length and the width right now. So very important not to force the material into the middle. So notice I pick it back up to relax it as much as possible. And now I'm going to add heat. And again, the material shrinks back towards the length of the table right now. So by adding heat, you see not only that it relaxes, but it actually wraps into the edge itself. So again, that's the beauty of zero stretch, is I don't have to work very hard anymore, because all that tension that's naturally in the material from the manufacturer I'm using to my advantage. I don't even have to create the tension myself. It's already there, which is beautiful. So I add heat. You can see that material really shrinks on that upper corner. And also pay attention to how I'm working in baby stages. I'm working in, let's say, about maybe 15, 20 centimeters at a time. I'm not working, or 6 inches, I'm not working this whole section at one time, because I really want to make sure I get that tight seal on that upper corner. Absolutely critical right now. So adding heat, really allowing it to shrink. You see how it just kind of relaxes onto that upper ridge. I seal it with the application glove, and then everything's good. Nice easy takedown right to the edge. So always kind of do the corners first and then finish with that flat section in the middle, work in stages, and now you got a nice tension-free edge right there at the top, good to go. So once everything's set at the bottom now, again continuing with that zero stretch logic where I'm adding quite a bit of heat. So I'm really going slow with my heat gun, and it's actually on the highest setting right now. You can see how the material really is shrinking right into the edge, doing all the wrapping for me, which is awesome. So very cool. So in many ways, calendar film makes it in some ways easier to wrap than cast because of the natural shrink if you know how to anticipate it. Now for wrapping on the table, it's a very interesting setup in terms of the width of the table and also on the length. On the width of the table, the legs right now basically come flush to the corner here, and it's a little open right here on the sides where the corner is. So basically I make a relief cut right where the frame starts or ends right there, pick the sides up, and I'm going to kiss it with heat right now just to relax it. As it relaxes, I'm going to fold it under, form it on the corner right there, and I'm basically going to take it about another 1/4 inch under, kiss it with heat again. Very important to relax it first. Once I kiss it with heat, pull gently on the other side. Don't pull too hard because you don't want to overstretch the film. Once it's tucked under there, again, you're going to see I'm going to cut it solid 1/4 inch or about 1 centimeter just underneath. So super careful right there not to cut the piece that's going to be folded under. Once that's cut, seal the deal, good to go. Now here, this is a very focused cut, so I click the blade so it's extra sharp. And normally I do a tuck and cut here, but right now there's a little open gap right on the edge. So notice I keep my blade angle almost at a 90-degree angle right now. And because I did zero stretch or relaxed it at each stage right now, there's no chance of that material jumping because it's so relaxed. So I didn't heat and stretch down. I basically allowed the material to shrink into the table itself. So no tension there, which allows me basically to do a nice good flush cut straight forward. So it saves me a few steps, and there's no chance of it failing. So I get that nice good quality. Then I'm obviously going to come back with the hard side of my squeegee and seal the deal. So great stuff, and again, the power of zero stretch. So I love the fact that this table's holding super strong and I don't have to do much. So here, same setup as you saw before, kind of do the corners first, do the flat in the middle, and here I'm adding a ton of heat to that bottom edge right now. And for the length, as I mentioned earlier, you have to wrap under. So there's no metal frame right there, so I do want to take the material under. So notice I give it a kiss of heat and work in stages. So from one side to the other, I round it with my thumb right now just to get it going in the right direction. Then I come in with my squeegee and take it under. So try to not take too big of a step right here. Take tiny steps as you go from the outside to the underside. And here I want to have a nice professional cut. Is the client going to see this on a regular basis? Not really, but you always just want to make sure that in case they do look under, you're not just kind of making a random kind of jagged cut right now. So here I'm taking trim line or fine line tape right now. This is from Yellow Tools, and it's about 1 centimeter wide. And why I like fine line tape here right now is because it's nice and thick and has a good hard edge to allow my blade to run next to it. So this is definitely costing me a little bit of money right now to run the fine line tape from front to back, but I think it's very important in terms of getting that good quality. So it's just an investment in that long-term, professional finish. And here, taking my blade and trying to keep it at about a 10-degree angle, super sharp, and just really focused in letting the blade run right next to the edge. So again, taking a few seconds to ensure a straight cut for me is a sign of a true professional, being super focused. And with me, it's kind of nice. I'm just laying on my back and just chilling. It's awesome. So basically cut from side to side, super focused right now. Obviously going to do the same thing on the other side. Pull the excess film away, nice and careful and flat, because you don't want to press too hard. And now remove the fine line tape and done. So we've got that professional finish underneath, which is great. And here's a close-up of it so you can see how uniform it is. And let's say even if the client doesn't look under the table, let's say if they grab under the table while they're eating, it's going to feel nice and uniform, which is super cool. Plus it holds up really well because of that adhesive promoter holding it on nice and tight. So with that, table is done. I'm going to put the flowers on and button everything up. Hope you enjoyed all the tips and tricks in this video. Thanks for watching. Justin Pate.